Greetings, everybody, and welcome to our workshop, Stressed Out, How to Survive the Holiday Red Zone. We're going to find out all about what that red zone is. But first things first, no matter how you found your way to our webinar, there's something that I already know about you. First off, whoever shared this with you must care about you, or they're sick of hearing you complain. And the second thing I know is that you must be an action taker, somebody that wants to take action for their health. And maybe that's for yourself or your entire family, or to share with your friends and family. So remember that success is reserved for the action takers. And so I want to acknowledge you for showing up for this. I also want to let you know that my purpose is not just to share interesting information to you. My objective is to transform you, because I am part of a large network of doctors called the Wellness Champions. And the definition of doctor is teacher. And so I'm here today to boldly step out, because my mission is to change the consciousness of our community from a disease care model to a wellness care model, and to save thousands of lives in the process. And so I'm so glad that you're here, because my understanding, what I've seen over the years is that the more that people understand about how their body works, the better they take care of it. So today, we're going to be covering the most powerful way to survive the holiday stresses that can happen. And so that can help you finish the year strong, unlike most Americans. And in fact, this information could literally save your life, meaning that it could reduce your chances of cancer, heart disease, and early death, unlike 5 out of 6 Americans that are headed in that direction right now. So I wanted to start by sharing something that stuck with me over the years. This was a story that some colleagues told me about an experience they had. They were traveling, and it was near the holidays. And on the plane with them, there was a guy that had a heart attack right on the plane. And he was traveling with his 11-year-old daughter. And so when the plane landed, that little girl got off that plane without her dad. And when they described the guy, he was middle-aged and deconditioned, was how he was described, meaning he was out of shape. And you can imagine the guy's probably was thinking, well, yeah, I'm out of shape, but I have time to get back in shape. Now's not a good time. I haven't done it yet, right? He thought he had time, and he didn't. And so this stuck with me, because I realized that if somebody could have gotten to that guy sooner and created a pivot point for him to get his life and his health back on the road to a much healthier state, then he would still be around. So I want to create pivot points for people, and I hope that you get great information here on this webinar, so that you could also create pivot points for yourself or for other people that you know and love, your friends, your family, your coworkers, neighbors, anybody in your circle of influence. So if you get value from this workshop, then please share it. And I'll tell you that if by the end of this workshop, you're not thinking differently about your body and your health and your life, then I would have failed you. So I have a high bar here of what I want to accomplish on this webinar. So stick with it to the end so you get the most out of it, and stay as engaged as you can throughout, so you do learn what you need to learn. So first off, let's just start with a 20,000 view here. We're in the holidays, but how many people here would agree that we basically have a health crisis in our country, right? And I don't just mean a COVID crisis. I mean the health crisis we were already in before COVID even hit. And you see, the holidays it's not just feeling rushed and grumpy around the holidays where, stress affects us. There are serious implications to holiday stress. And it's related to, all of this stress is related to the rise in the health crisis that happens every year at this time. Modern life is already so unnaturally stressful, and it's not at all designed the way we were designed to be living. People are maxed out all the time. And then the holidays comes along, and it's the perfect trifecta of how we eat, how we move, how we think. Everything tanks this time of the year. And the result is what we now call the typical holiday red zone of stress and burnout. And unfortunately, we have now come to regard this as a normal time of the year where we just get more stressed. But remember that stress is life-threatening. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but it accumulates, and it results in all sorts of conditions, and it is serious. So just check this out here, this graph I'm going to show you. Right, this is something that shows year after year after year, this same kind of a spike that happens. And this is a measure of cardiac deaths. So even in just this particular graph that goes from 73 to 2001, it didn't stop in 2001. This same cycle is happening year after year. And what the doctors notice is that the heart attack rates jump 33% in December and January. And in fact, the American Institute of Stress notes that 55% of American people are stressed out throughout the day. That makes Americans the most stressed out population in the world. And work-related stress is at an all-time high. 83% of American workers are suffering from job-related stress. And so we know that chronic stress negatively affects all parts of our bodies and it can include leading to a higher risk of heart attacks, strokes, and depression, and many other things. Last year in 2019, a poll showed that 79% of Americans feel stressed sometimes or frequently throughout each day. And 44% of Americans feel more stressed than they did just 5 years ago. That was last year. You can imagine what those polls would show this year, right? So we have this added burden of the COVID pandemic and the drastic changes to our lifestyles. And now we are getting more data and we're faced with the grim reality that there are other pandemic health complications that we're able to measure. In fact, even though the reports for the death rate from the virus are very low, it's 0.26%, 0.26% are dying from the virus. But 30% of Americans are not just stressed, but are actually displaying symptoms of anxiety or depressive disorders. Right? So there's this other whole impact of how our stress levels have increased so immensely. And if you compare the rates of anxiety or depressive disorders from last year, it was 6 to 8%. This year it's 30%. And it's even worse for the frontline workers. And that's showing up similarly on a global scale. So why do you think this is? Why is this? Because let's just look at this. Let's unpack this a bit. We have an economy of 4 limited resources. We have 4 limited resources that we have to rely on to manage our life: time, energy, focus, and money, right? And so we're maxed out from every angle all year. And then we add the extraordinary stress of the holidays. And the holidays is putting demand on all 4 of these. And so chronic stress is low grade, but then the stress of the holidays, it has real physical consequences. It's actually very similar to the acute stress that we're hardwired for if a tiger is chasing us, but actually our bodies go into the same response physically. So what is that stress response? Things like stress hormones being produced, our melatonin, our sleep hormone gets downregulated, not a good time to sleep if a tiger is chasing you. Our blood pressure increases, our cholesterol is upregulated, our clotting factors are upregulated, our insulin sensitivity is downregulated, and we have increases in inflammation and swelling, okay? Doesn't that sound just like that previous slide about heart attacks just waiting to happen? So when you're fighting the tiger, you don't need to do algebra or learn, you just need to get away from that tiger. And although we rarely experience an actual tiger, we often have chronic low-level versions of it. And it's the buildup and accumulation of the lifestyle stresses that's the problem. So if we're not adapting to these stresses, our body actually will start to break down. Now, notice that, again, it's the immune system that downregulates as well. So oftentimes we think of this time of the year as the flu season, right? Like right after the holidays, the flu season. But actually, it's not the flu season. It's the stress and sugar season. That's what's happening, right? And so let's just look at this idea of these symptoms that can come up when we are stressed and recognize that symptoms are body signals. So this webinar is part of a series we do every month. We have a different condition that we focus on, and we learn what are the body signals that are associated with that condition so that we can actually learn to speak body and understand the signals, the language our body is giving us, because the symptoms are body signals. It's our body's way of asking for help. And how you respond to these signals will determine what your health outcomes are. So are you actually listening to your body, or are you trying to manage it and mask those symptoms? Remember that symptoms as body signals the symptoms are not the problem. The symptoms are not the problem. It's a communication from our body that there is a problem. But just like the tip of the iceberg, the problem is actually much bigger underneath the surface. So we want to respond to these body signals and understand how to speak body. I am spending my day listening to bodies all day long. So I understand what these symptoms mean and what these signals are, but I want you to learn how to read your symptoms as body signals. And if you don't understand the difference between the symptom and the cause, and are really thinking that the symptom is the problem, then the depression, anxiety, stress, if that's the problem, the goal might be to just make that symptom go away. But if you understand that it's just a signal that there's a bigger problem, and that if we can uncover what the cause of that bigger problem is and reconcile that, that's when it's actually going to improve our health. So we certainly do need a better way when we're looking at all of this, but I want to put it all in a perspective. So if we look at this illness wellness continuum, the symptoms are telling us what direction we're heading. So the symptoms are there to tell us that we're moving away from health. And if you look at this, you'll notice that on the left-hand side, this is where there's premature death, early death. The right-hand side is where there's high levels of wellness. So this is a continuum where everybody is going to be somewhere on this continuum. The middle is the area which we call the not sick zone. So we have the sick zone on the left, the not sick zone in the middle, and the healthy zone on the right. And you'll notice that symptoms are falling down at the lower end of the scale. And so the symptoms are the sign that we have already moved away from health. But just recognize that, people are taught that symptoms are the best indicator of health, but that's not really true, because we look at all the major chronic illnesses that we struggle with. When you think of heart disease, what is the symptom of heart disease? There's no symptom in the beginning. There may be signs that show up, but before the symptoms are the signs. Once you're actually experiencing the symptoms, you're already in trouble, right? So again, people are taught that symptoms are the best indicator of health. Well, really? Let's look at what the science tells us about feeling symptoms, right? Science tells us that less than 10% of your nerves actually sense pain. So if you are waiting for pain to be your indicator of when you have a problem, you could have 90% of your nervous system with problems in it, and you won't feel it because there won't be pain. So again, by the time you're feeling it, you're already moving away from health. And so it really is that sign of the late stages of a problem, not the early stages. And this is true, again, for most common health issues. So we talked about heart disease. How about diabetes, right? What are the symptoms of diabetes? What are the symptoms of cancer? How about tooth decay? What are the symptoms of a cavity, right? By the time you have these symptoms of pain, you already have problems. So is the symptom an early sign or a late sign that you have a problem, right? So we're taught to judge our health and manage our health by symptoms, but can you see that we need a better way? And we need to look at our health and our health issues in a different way. We need a better way, and we need to be thinking about this in a different way. So I want to introduce this idea of a better premise in order to get better outcomes. It has to start with thinking about things in a different way. All right, so healthy is normal. We are designed to be healthy. Our body is designed to be healthy. And if you're not experiencing optimum health, it just simply means that something is interfering with that natural expression of health. And so there are only two things that are going to interfere with health, either toxicities or deficiencies or both. And once we understand that and reconcile them, then you'll be right on the road to being healthy again. Because your body is smart. Every single cell in your body has an innate intelligence that is always trying to move towards health. Your body is so smart. Think about all the different cells in your body and what they're doing right now without you even thinking about it. Digesting food, breathing air, right? Detoxing your body. All of those things are happening without you even thinking about it because of the intelligence in every single cell. And the intelligence actually courses across your nervous system to coordinate and control all of the functions in the body. So the nervous system is the master system in the body, and that's what keeps you healthy and healing. And then, of course, the spine is your suit of armor that is protecting your nervous system. So and in this webinar, you're going to understand what the spine has to do with mastering holiday stress. And can we all agree that stress, the modern life is so unnaturally stressful, and that we have more stress now than we ever did before? Definitely more than a few years ago, but even more than last year with everything that's been going on. So we have more stress. And so that stress comes at us in 3 dimensions, right? From every angle. And it comes full force during the holidays. So when we think about it, the body, it was designed to be healthy, but with these 3 aspects, it's coming at us from our thoughts, from toxins, and from traumas. So we're going to unpack each one of these so you can understand where it's all coming from. And so just like the body was designed to be healthy, we have a design of, for example, of how we digest our and metabolize our food. Uses the digestive system. And when we think about breathing, that's the respiratory system. When we think about our blood moving through our body, that's the circulatory system that handles that. If we have infections, that's our immune system that handles that. So we have systems in our body. Well, what system do we have that actually helps us to deal with stress? What system does that? That's what we need to know. So oftentimes people are, I'm not sure which system that is. Well, think about how amazing the design of our body is, and even in our ability to heal ourselves. The body is self-healing and self-regulating. It has the ability to heal itself as long as there's no interference, right? So if you cut your finger, it bleeds, it scabs up, it heals every time. But if it's not healing, maybe there's a sliver that's stuck in there, right? It's gotten infected. So what do we do about that? Do we leave the sliver in there and just pound it with antibiotics? Or do we remove the sliver that's interfering so that it can then just go back to that ability to heal it up, right? So the body is self-healing. But why is it that we have such a health crisis these days in our culture if our body is self-healing? Why do we have a health crisis? If the body can heal itself, it's because the crisis is actually a health care crisis and a lifestyle crisis. That's the problem. It's not what's happening to us. It is what we're doing that is the problem, and it's leading to chronic disease. So it's what we're doing that is the problem that has led to the health crisis that we have in our country. You don't get sick, you do sick. This is my favorite health premise. You don't get sick, you do sick. Your behavior matters. The choices that you make matter. There are positive and negative consequences to your choices and your behaviors. And that's actually good news, because if this is what's true about getting sick, it's also true about getting healthy and staying well. Disease comes from the body's inability to adapt to stress. And you don't get healthy, you don't get healthy, you do healthy, right? You don't get sick, you do sick. You don't get healthy, you do healthy. So let's make getting healthy and staying healthy actionable. What are our strategies to do this? Remember, the body is self-healing and self-regulating. It has the ability to heal itself as long as there's no interference. So what do we need to do to thrive this holiday season? That's what I want to show you. And so recognize that the healthiest people in the world know that this is true about health and healing. That when it comes to thriving in an unnaturally stressful modern world, there are 2 sides of the coin. The first side is stress reduction, but the other side of it is stress tolerance. Now, most people have heard of stress reduction, just don't desire as much, just don't go after so much, right? Just don't strive for as much. The problem is that people do want more, right? They want to live a bigger life. They want to do more. They want to enjoy more. They want to live more. They want to be full of life. They want more opportunities than they can take advantage of, right? But it's not very inspiring to just tell someone, just do less. Just don't want so much. And I'm sure there are smart choices we need to make here and there, and there's more discipline that we could apply to our lives. But I like the other side of the coin better. Increase the tolerance so that you are able to manage these stresses and even greater stresses, right? It's 2 sides of the coin. So really the topic for this webinar is all about stress and the amounts of stress that we have and how we can manage those stresses better. It's really about something called allostatic load. Allostatic load is this idea of having how much stress you're able to handle versus how much you have to do, right? So the difference between easily managing something or struggling with it. it depends on the amount that you have that you're being forced to manage. So they actually did a study, and they had two groups. They followed them for 2 years. 500% of them had a greater increase in heart disease in the folks who had a high allostatic load, meaning they had more on their plates that they had to handle than other people. They had more heart disease. So when we think of this time of the year, I mean, from Halloween to Thanksgiving, right through Christmas and the New Year, we talk about things like the Christmas 5, where you gain those 5 pounds during the holidays and then you don't really take them off. And next year you gain another 5 pounds, right? We tend to abuse ourselves through our diet this time of the year more than any other time of the year. So there's the holiday parties, there's alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, artificial sweeteners, more drug use during this time of the year, Christmas cookies, processed foods, nutritional deficiencies, overeating, and way more unhealthy, fatty, and high sugar diets happening this time of the year. Now, I love the holidays, but there definitely is more emotional stress this time of the year. There's financial strains with money, not being able to provide, the shopping demands, even just the experience of shopping. And this year, it's all online this year too. So staying up, being online, trying to figure things out, work stresses this time of the year, unhealthy relationships or missing family, lost loved ones this time of the year, depression, being alone, and again, even more this time of the year with COVID around, anxiety, sadness, right? All those things are heightened this time of the year. And most people stop exercising this time of the year, right? Overuse injuries, whether it's raking leaves or shoveling snow, carrying packages, the changes in the weather, poor posture, slips on falls or ice, sedentary lifestyle, poor sleep, repetitive traumas, travel, maybe not this time of the year, but maybe we'll get some traveling in. All right, but can you see how everything is maxed out this time of the year, right? All three are coming at full force during the holidays. And there are known consequences to this that we typically see this time of the year. So you get to make a choice here. The more unhealthy the lifestyle, the more stress it puts on our bodies, and it speeds this process up at the holiday time. So the consequences such as a suppressed immune system, depression, exhaustion and anxiety, high blood pressure, elevated cholesterol, weight gain, increases in heart attacks, as we just saw, right? Now, there actually was a study that was done back in 1921. And this guy, Dr. Abraham Windsor, he did autopsies on bodies, and he found that in spite of whatever the cause of death was, that the average person actually had 4 to 5 diseased organs that they may have not even known about. And his further investigation showed that 96% of these diseased organs, 96% were directly related to stress. Now, can you imagine what it's like today? This was in 1921. And I want to show you the exact mechanism of how stress actually causes chronic disease and causes folks to lose their health and well-being. And I want to show you the strategies of how you can reverse it. So remember, we asked that question of what system controls how we manage stress, right? It is the nervous system. Through your nervous system, you perceive the world, adapt to stress, coordinate all your body parts and functions, express your emotions, and through all that, that is how you create your conscious reality. So the nervous system controls everything. We are literally living our lives through our nervous system. And all stress is filtered and processed through the nervous system. The ability of our nervous system to adapt to stress will determine if we're able to maintain homeostasis and optimal function and health. And when stress becomes chronic or the amount is significant, it can overwhelm the ability of our nervous system to adapt. And then this leads to unhealthy, covert or hidden and habituated neurological patterns. It establishes patterns in our nervous system. So remember that last slide that showed stress and tolerance, top and bottom. So the stresses, whether they're physical, emotional, chemical, or all three, right? The stress needs to be processed through the nervous system. And so our internal adaptability, that's our tolerance. That is our stress tolerance, is our internal adaptability. How much capacity do we have in our bodies to manage the stresses that we're exposed to? So if we have enough internal adaptability, then the way we're going to process these stresses coming in, we'll be able to manage it, right? However, what if the stresses are higher and our internal adaptability is lower? Then that actually will create more stress patterning in our bodies. And we actually have a way that we can measure it. We actually have technology to measure not just whether or not our system is stressed, but actually exactly which organs are being stressed by the current stresses that we have. And these unhealthy neurological patterns are what determine how it affects our body and what organs are being affected. So if there's interference going to an organ from the nervous system, that's going to cause that organ to break down in function. So if we have health and wellness and robustness in our body and a high internal adaptability, a high internal tolerance, then we have more than enough needed to be able to manage the physical, emotional, and chemical stresses that we're exposed to. So let's get strategic now. Our body has the capability to adapt to stress and maintain homeostasis, but only if it has a certain capacity. And if it's overwhelmed, it's going to start to break down and develop disease. So let's just look at the importance of our choices. What are we going to choose to stop doing, choose to slow down doing, choose to start doing, right? It all comes down to our choices. And our choices are going to be based on what our beliefs are. So if we have a conventional approach to health, basically what that means is that we're going to just continue with our toxic lifestyle and then just treat the outcomes of that, treat the symptoms with drugs or surgery or that kind of thing. Just deal with the consequences, but keep doing what we're doing. And the result of that research clearly shows that if we're only treating symptoms as our way of dealing with our health, that we're going to have a shorter and worse life. Basically, that's it. However, if we address the cause of the dysfunction, and that means more than just saying no to drugs, it means you have to say yes to something else, right? And so that something else is saying yes to healthier lifestyle. So maybe using lifestyle and health coaching, like what we do here in our practice for you, or correcting the cause, understanding what that cause is, and then doing what it takes to correct that cause. If you approach your health this way and your choices are based on this belief and perspective, then you will have a better and longer life. So it's really about the healthy outcomes or the sick outcomes. And no judgment on it, just recognize that if you have made an unhealthy choice, then just get back on track. That's it. You're going to get a body signal. If you pay attention to that body signal and redirect how you're making your choices, then you can get right back on track. And, you know, sometimes we have to overlap these two approaches until your body's healthy enough to be able to wean off and stop drugs and stop treating the symptoms. So you have to get the body healthier first and then wean off the conventional approach. So let's unpack this a bit when we start to look at choices. And remember, we just said that our nervous system is what's responsible for how we perceive the world. So your interpretation of your environment, whether it's what's going on with work, with finances, with your kids, your spouse, your friends, whether you've been eating junk food or are tempted by it, whether you use supplements or prescription drugs, recreational drugs, if you have accidents, exercise or don't exercise, maybe, you know, on the way to work, there was somebody who flipped you off in traffic and that stressed you out. Bills are stressing you out. It's the copy machine, it's the computer, it's any technology. Or you have deaths in the family or illness, your own or your other family members, or travel stress, or just what are we going to have for dinner? Or, oh, I didn't get to the gym, or school is stressful, mom, dad, fashion, what should I wear today, right? Or just thinking about that guy again who flipped you off earlier that day. Politics, religion, taxes, email. Like we've got plenty of things available to be able to be stressed about. But remember, it's what we think about all these things that's going to affect us. So what do we need to do to think to thrive this time of the year? It's true the entire year, right? But especially this time of the year. So choosing your attitude, right? You can you can't always choose what's happening to you, what situations or circumstances you have, but you can always choose your attitude. And this is important, and it should be empowering to recognize this, because it actually will change your experience and your performance right inside of that very same situation. So just know this, that the left prefrontal cortex, it actually can inhibit a stress response just by choosing to respond with a positive thought or emotion. So just by choosing a different thought that's a positive thought, literally GABA is released in your brain, and that actually blocks a whole cascade that would go right down into your reptilian brain, right down into your whole HPA axis of stress hormones, and cortisol would then flood the body. So GABA actually would block that, and that's simply by choosing a different thought. And remember that whatever thoughts you're choosing on a regular basis is what you're going to be creating. So there's something called neurosensitization. And that means that every time that you repeat something, whether it's an action like you're an athlete and you're repeating a certain sport activity, you're training, right? The nerves are going to continue to fire in the same way the more that you do it. And that's going to make it more sensitive to that pathway and create more connections. Now, this is also true for our thoughts. So it's the same for sick thoughts or healthy thoughts. So if you are having a lot of sick thoughts, you're going to just establish a neurosensitization that's going to create more and more of that. Versus if you are choosing healthier thoughts and you do that over and over again, that actually also is going to have that same neurosensitization effect, and it's going to develop stronger pathways for that. And what's also interesting is mild exercise actually will raise a neuron's stress threshold. So you won't be as stressed if you are incorporating mild exercise into your day. So your perspective of the world, of the stresses around you, actually can change even based on adding exercise in. But more on that later. So choosing your attitude. So how do you actually do this? Here's a way that I think works really well. First, take a breath, right? Take a breath so you have a moment to think about it, and just evaluate this particular stress. Is it life-threatening or altering? Is it truly life-threatening or altering? Or is it just annoying, right? If it's just annoying, recognize, oh yeah, this is actually just annoying. And then ask yourself, will you remember this in a day, a week, a month? And if you won't, then again, you can just down-regulate how important it is to respond in a stress capacity to this, right? Then once you have identified actually what level of stress it is, take a deep belly breath right down into your diaphragm, count to 10, and then smile, right? Literally smiling actually will shift the chemistry in your body. All right, so choose your attitude, so important. And again, think about that with all the stresses of the holidays. So, budget early for the holidays, utilize Black Friday, right, to save money, or Cyber Monday, right? Use coupons, just only use cash. Don't use your credit cards, because then you're going to go more than you have, right? So choose your attitude on this. Be positive about it. Be proactive about it. And then other things that are important, like connection, acceptance, and respect this time of the year. So keeping frequent communication with families, and avoiding taking on too much responsibility, or going to parties that you don't want to go to, right? So those are some real life things that happen this time of the year. But remember that connection, acceptance, and respect are essential nutrients to be happy and healthy as a human. Just like we need vitamins and minerals in our body to function at a genetic level, we need that. And if we don't have them, we have to go into some sort of adaptive behavior. It's true about our thought life as well. So through our choices in our environment, we can actually feed ourselves connection, acceptance, and respect by choosing our environment that we're in, choosing the people we're spending time with. So make sure you provide lots of opportunities for these experiences of connection, acceptance, and respect, especially this time of the year. Unconditional love, right? That is such a gift that we can give other people. And it doesn't mean that we're unconditionally accepting or approving of their behavior. No, it means that we're simply unconditionally accepting them as a human being, that there's nothing that this person can do that will make you love them more or less. They're just a human being. And then we have grace, right? Grace. It's that idea of being able to do a do-over, right? Giving someone a do-over, right? That's what I think of it when I think of it as grace. And, you know, again, we don't always have control over our situation or circumstances, but we can control our responses. So there's sort of an illusion of control here. And everybody could use a little bit more grace this time of the year. And again, remembering that gratitude is the partner to grace, that turning the stress switch off with gratitude is the fastest way to do that. So looking for what are you grateful for in this very situation. And if you can't find something grateful in this particular stressful situation, then you want to think about what are you just grateful for anyway in the world anyway, and just go think about that. So again, choosing your thought. Now, I do find that there are some particular technologies or techniques that we can use that can help to turn the stress switch off quite quickly. And EFT is one of the things I teach in the practice, emotional freedom technique. Definitely you want to look at that as a tool if you don't already know that. There's also a great app called Headspace, which will teach you how to meditate if you don't know how to do that. And that gives you 10-minute meditations that lead you through them, and it's free. And so it's a fantastic app for learning how to meditate. And then the book called The Work, or actually the book called Loving What Is by Byron Katie. She teaches a process called The Work, which is basically just answering 4 questions that will help to bring you back to a clear and centered state, no matter what's going on. So I love that book. It's called Loving What Is, because she teaches you what to do in the first 20 pages, and then the rest of it is just examples. So those are some good tools that if you are looking for strategies, then you can use those. And so how we think about things and what our thoughts are over and over again, choosing our attitude is key. And I want to actually share with you this. I love this motivational video. And see if I can bring this up. If I can't, I will describe it to you. Here we go. Nope, that's not it. Oops, let me try this again. All right. Try that again. I've got it here. Let's see now. That's the PowerPoint. Hang on with me here. I want to bring it up because, oh, here it is. Okay. All right, so this is here. Okay. All right, sorry, you gotta bear with this. Let's bear with this. Let's